Substance abuse can be a factor when you're getting a divorce. If you have a substance abuse problem and you're going through a divorce with kids, there are some things you should think about. Obviously, I'm going to tell you to get help, but if you're not there yet and you're not ready, there are different things you can do. It depends on what substance you are using, right? For example, if you are using pot, sometimes that's okay. It really just depends, right? If you're using a substance and not around your children, it might not be a big deal. The real question for a judge is whether your use of substances is impacting your time with your children and impacting your children's well being and safety. If you're partying with your friends, may not be a big deal, right? As long as your time with your kids are safe. But then there's kind of nuances and extra layers here. Even if you are sober with your kids, if you are engaging in reckless behavior, there still could be an impact on your custody rights. For example, if you are abusing substances and driving and you're getting in trouble with the law, this could impact your custody. You could be ordered to do random drug and alcohol testing because keep in mind that even if you believe you've always been sober with your children, if your spouse or the other parent is claiming that you haven't been, it's your word against the other parent's word. And the judge could find that, you still need to do something to show the judge that you do not have a substance abuse problem. If you're being accused of having a substance abuse issue and having that issue impact your time with your kids, we usually recommend that rather than be on the defensive side, if you might have an issue, we acknowledge that there's been an issue and you get help or you show the judge that you're clean, right? You agree to do random drug and alcohol testing to show I don't have a problem. In fact, sometimes it's a great idea to voluntarily do random drug and alcohol testing before you even make it in front of the judge. So the judge sees, hey, he or she is a good person. He or she cares about the kids, right? There's no issue here. In fact, this parent has gone above and beyond to show there's no issue. And of course, you continue to have unsupervised time with your kids. No issue. But when you're defensive and you say you don't have a problem and you don't do anything to show the court that you don't have a problem, that's when a judge might order that you do random drug and alcohol testing or order that your parenting time be supervised because the court's concerned you have a problem and you haven't done anything to dispel the court's concerns. Now, if you're being accused of having a substance abuse issue and you've never abused substances and the other parent is just making these things up, that's a different story, right? If you have nothing in your record, if you've never gotten a DUI, if you've never gotten in trouble with the law, if the other parent has no evidence that you've been abusing substances, if you've only used substances here or there that were legal and, that were allowed, that's a different story, right? It's a case-by-case basis. But generally, we would say if there have been issues on your record, if you've gotten in trouble with the law, if you might have a substance abuse issue or had one in the past, it's best to do a random drug and alcohol test ahead of your court appearance to show the judge that you don't have a problem. Now, if you're concerned about the other parent's use of substances, we would recommend that you do something about it, right? Either have us talk to the other parent or the other parent's attorney and make sure that the other parent is going to be clean and sober for parenting time. Or if the other parent will not agree to get sober, which is certainly oftentimes the case, if the other parent has tried to get sober by going to rehab programs and those haven't been successful, then, oftentimes it makes sense for you to feel for that parent and not want to set further boundaries because it's upsetting and it's a hard topic, but typically it can be really beneficial for your kids to seek the court's intervention so that the court understands that the other parent does have a substance abuse issue and sets legal boundaries with that parent so that parent gets the help they need. And if the other parent's not ready to become clean and sober and get the help they need, then that doesn't mean that the other parent can't have parenting time with your kid. It just means that parenting time might need to be supervised, either by a mutual friend or by a professional supervisor, just to make sure that your kids are safe. Because you don't want your kids to be driven by the other parent if the other parent's on drugs or alcohol, right? That's not safe for your kids. You don't want to put your kids in a situation that you'll regret putting them in by not setting the legal boundaries that they need to be safe. Substance abuse does affect custody decisions. It's really nuanced, right? It depends on what's really going on. You might believe that the other parent has a substance abuse issue, but you might not have enough evidence to show the court that he or she has a substance abuse issue. So it's tricky, right? And it's about how we put evidence in front of the court in order to prove to the judge that the other parent has an issue and that there's an impact on related to that parent's substance abuse issue on your children. Mental health and substance abuse kind of play hand in hand, right? So if you're worried about the other parent's behavior and you suspect that they might have a substance abuse issue or maybe it's also a mental health issue, we typically would recommend that a child custody evaluation be performed. A child custody evaluation isn't something a judge is going to automatically order, right? It's something that we, as your attorney, will ask for, and it's up to the judge to decide whether to grant that request. Child custody evaluation can be a great tool for the court to determine whether or not the other parent has a substance abuse issue or a mental health issue. But more importantly than that, it's a great tool for the court to understand what kind of parenting plan needs to be in place in order to make sure that we are doing what's best for your kids and making sure that they are protected and, hopefully that the other parent gets the help that they need. But, probably a child custody evaluation would be a great place to start. A child custody evaluation can include psychological assessment of the other parent in order to determine, what's really going on with them. Do they need therapy? Do they need medication? Do they need a rehab program? If they're unwilling to get help, does random drug and alcohol testing need to be ordered in order to determine whether they have an issue, whether they're able to stay sober? Do they need to test before they have parenting time with the kids to make sure that they're sober? Do they need that supervisor to be there to make sure that the contact with the kids is safe and in the kids' best interest? It can feel like a lot of pressure and a big weight on you to have to make sure that your kids are safe on your own without anyone else's help, right? You've probably had to do that for a long time so far, and it's been weighing on you, and it's stressful because you don't want to take the other parent's kids away from him or her. That's not the role you want to play. And I understand that completely. But unfortunately, part of this process to make sure your kids are safe is going to involve hiring an attorney so that attorney can be the bad guy, and file the paperwork that's needed and get the judge's attention in order to make sure your kids are safe. And keep in mind that oftentimes in these custody cases, you will need to do mediation with the court. There's a mediator appointed by the court that you and the other parent will meet with to figure out if you can reach agreements on custody before anything is escalated. So if the other parent wants to be transparent and admit maybe she or he has an issue and needs to get help and wants to agree to get help or wants to agree to do weekly therapy, wants to agree to take steps in order to improve his or her behavior or well-being so that he or she can be the best parent possible for your kids, that's great. It doesn't need to wind up in a courtroom with the judge making orders, but just keep in mind it's not up to you, right? It's going to be up to that other parent to decide that he or she's ready to get help and do the right thing to be the best parent for your kids. So if you're in a custody case where the other parent has a substance abuse issue, it's possible that the judge has already ordered that other parent do random drug and alcohol testing. Or maybe the other parent has already voluntarily offered to do it because he or she is saying, I don't have a problem. I'm happy to go ahead and do this. By the way, if the other parent is voluntarily offering to do random drug and alcohol testing, make sure it's random, right? Because if they're voluntarily agreeing to do it, they might be doing that because they want to make sure they know the date and time that they're doing it rather than actually signing up for the random drug and alcohol testing. If it's random, they don't get to choose the date and time. And the whole point of it is to catch them not being sober like they're supposed to. So make sure it's actually ordered and not just on their terms. Now, if random drug and alcohol testing is ordered and the other parent tests dirty or positive, there's different consequences that can play out depending on the orders you already have in place with the court. If in the court's orders, it says that if the parent tests dirty or positive for substances, that parent's visitation cease, then the other parent won't have any more parenting time with your child until there's another court appearance or until you negotiate something with the other parent as far as their parenting time. Generally, though, the parenting time doesn't automatically stop unless you do something about it or else unless it's already in a court order. Other times, if the parent tests dirty, maybe they have to have their visits be supervised until they can show that they remain sober. If you are in a custody battle or you are sharing custody with the other parent who has a substance abuse issue, it's important for us to make sure that your case stays in front of the judge so that you continue to have options in order to make sure that your kids kids are safe. If we get it out of the court, that's not a bad thing, right? It can be a good thing to get your case out of the court and into a less adversarial environment. But usually we need some sort of help, right? We need maybe someone like a co-parenting coordinator or a co-parenting counselor or somebody with some sort of authority to make decisions or recommendations to help the other parent get help. Oftentimes when you share a child with a person that has a substance abuse issue, it can be really hard to have them face the issue they have and get the help they need. But it's critical that you continue to set those boundaries to protect your kid. Because if you don't set those boundaries, no one else is going to. Except for, in your worst case scenario, something happens to your child while with the other parent, when the other parent is on drugs or alcohol, and you know that they have an issue, you can be held responsible and you can get in trouble for that. So it's something you really need to take seriously, not just for the safety of your child, but also, doing the right thing. And so you're not in trouble with the law either. If you're worried about the other parent's behavior with your kids, oftentimes you can refrain from seeking help from the court system because you are equally, if not more, terrified about a judge scrutinizing your own behavior with your kids. And you're so scared of what that's going to look like that you don't really want to involve the court or get help, and you're tempted to just kind of let the status quo ride. And I just want to tell you that, while you might be really terrified, that if you're in this situation, it's likely because you are a capable parent that is genuinely concerned about your kids. And whatever you believe is wrong with you or you could have done better, you're likely just over analyzing and over scrutinizing yourself and giving yourself a hard time. As parents, we all give ourselves a hard time and wish we could do better with our kids. I do it with my kids. We all do it, right? But when you're in a situation where the other parent's behavior is so severe and so unsafe that you're thinking of involving the courts or getting an attorney, you need to act on those concerns. I've had clients that suffered from mental health disorders, and a lot of people in this world have mental health issues. And just because you've been diagnosed with something like bipolar disorder or depression or anxiety, that never means that you're a bad parent or you're not capable of being a good, safe parent with your kids. So if you have that kind of diagnosis, or maybe in the past you've had a substance abuse issue and you've gone to rehab and you've gotten better, none of those are reasons why you would not be considered a good and capable parent with your kids. I've had clients that have had mental health diagnosis or have recovered from substance abuse issues, and they've been found by the court to be the more capable parent, and they've gotten sole custody of their kids just because the other parent had a much worse issue that impacted the other parent's behavior, or the other parent was being dangerous with the kids, physically abusive with the kids, emotionally volatile with the kids. At the end of the day, it's not what your makeup is. The court's not going to say, oh, you have this mental health issue that you were diagnosed with 3 years ago. You're not a good parent, right? A mental health diagnosis doesn't mean anything standing alone. If you can show, oh, I go to therapy every week, I'm on medication, all of these things are great, and they show that you're able to do your self-care and you're a capable parent with your kids. So I really hope that this diagnosis or something that's happened in your past doesn't impair your ability to really get your kids the help they need. Oftentimes, if you're in a relationship with someone with a difficult personality, they're likely pointing the finger at you, right? And telling you it's your fault that you're in this situation, or it's your fault that the kids are having issues, when you know in your heart that that's not the case, right? So I think you really need to listen to your intuition here, listen to your gut, and find the help of a family law attorney, and put yourself first and put your kids first in order to really get the outcome you need from the court system and for your family. If you have questions about how substance abuse or mental health disorder can impact your family law matter, your custody matter, please do not hesitate to contact my office. We would be happy to help you and talk you through this and make sure that we can find a resolution for you that will be best for your family.